Hi, this is PubShorts, the weekly episodic series covering the latest news from the world of publishing and language technology. I am Dr. KK, the Innovation Officer at Trinka and Enago, and I have with me Tony. Tony, hi.
Hi, I'm Tony O'Rourke. Great to be here again, KK. I'm Vice President here for our partnerships in the publishing sector.
Excellent. So, Tony, you went to the Frankfurt Book Fair, which is considered to be the biggest event in publishing. So, could you?
Oh gosh, I think I counted this as my 27th visit to the Frankfurt Book Fair in 30 years. The Frankfurt Book Fair has changed a lot over the last 30 years. It's much more, or has much more focus on publishing technology. Electronic publishing, etc., than it used to have. It's still a fantastic rights show. It still has every publisher in the world there. In its heyday, it had over 8,000 companies exhibiting. And I remember one year, 8,000. I remember one year they claimed to have more than 1 million visitors attending the show. It's a mind-blowing show, really is.
And do you have any interesting sessions or anecdotes from this year's?
Well, the great thing about the Frankfurt Book Fair, sorry to interrupt you, Kate. The great thing about the book fair is that, you could, if you wanted to, spend all your time just attending sort of sessions. I didn't. I spent my time in meetings. So I was talking to publishers, I was talking to research societies, professional societies about how they're using technology and their plans for using technology in their publishing processes moving forward. But I did attend one workshop, which is around the use of AI in the scholarly publishing workflow. That was interesting.
Well, that's a nice segue into whatever we are talking about. We are talking about peer review again, and that's why the episode is titled "Another Day in Peer Review," which is a reference to a Phil Collins song. I hope you know the reference "Another Day in Paradise." But anyway, so
I do. I'll try and ignore it then.
And we are also talking some AI and publishing related. So let's start with the first story itself, which I think is one of the more interesting stories. I think you also have a similar thought. So this is a perspective published in the Facets Journal. And it is relatively old, I suppose, but it is published last month. But it is a candid perspective written by scholars from within the industry, offering from different disciplines as to what are the problems with peer review and how one can hope to potentially, figure out solutions for these. So I'm directly going to go to a wonderful infographic that they have shared. This is called the Peer Review Reality Check. And I'm just going to read through the numbered points here. So point number one, peer reviewers are biased. Point number two, peer reviewers and editors limit scientific and ideological innovations. Oh, that's a tough one. Peer reviewers, the point number three is peer reviewers can be ineffective at detecting flaws because they're humans, I suppose. Number four, peer reviewers sometimes engage in unprofessional and unethical conduct, which is, again, a human facet, I think. Number five, low quality peer reviewing results in everything being published. And this is a consequence of a lot of volume of publishing we have talked about that in previous episodes of PubShorts. Then peer reviewers are not incentivized. Point number seven is peer reviewers and editors are not formally trained. That there needs to be a solution for that. And peer reviewers can be unkind. So these are the 8 things. And the way that I looked at it, when I read this, Tony, I thought that this is a wonderful way to sort of represent what is wrong and what should be fixed. And I'll let you speak about this.
I think we should make clear this is saying when peer review goes wrong, and it does go wrong from time to time, one of these 8 factors tend to be the reason. Tend to be the reason why it goes wrong. The vast majority of peer review is excellent. The vast majority of peer review is thorough. It's unbiased. It encourages innovation. It can detect flaws, increasingly using technology, of course, to do that, and the other things. But every so often it goes wrong. I think what this infographic does, and there's another infographic later on in the article which gives recommendations in terms of what should happen. Mm-hmm. I think it just highlights, this is where it can go wrong, and I think it's important that that's borne in mind.
This is probably what you're referring to.
That's what I was referring to, exactly, yeah.
So if those interested, this is PubShorts. After all, we cannot cover the entire thing, but it's a wonderful article. We all recommend you check it out. And the link to the article will be given in the show description on both YouTube.
The final thing to say on this, KK, is that in the world that we're living in with increasing challenges on researchers and on reviewers, to do reviews, it's so important that there is a framework that reviewers can work to. And I think this is a wonderful resource that would support any framework.
Yes, and this also is a wonderful segue to our second article, which is from davidwarlock.com.
Oh, yes, David.
Yeah, so he's a history graduate, but he is known to be a pioneer in academic online publishing.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, so I'll let you speak, but let me just go through my quick notes here. So in this blog post, it is titled AI and Scholarly Publishing, Unfashionable Glimpses of Hope. David Warlock discusses the potential for AI to significantly reshape scholarly publishing, drawing parallels between past technological disruptions and the current wave of AI advancements. He reflects on the need for optimism amid the hype and pessimism surrounding AI, highlighting how automated systems could enhance research integrity and peer review, which is something that I am very passionate about. By the way, Tony, I hope you've had a chance to read the article that I wrote on Scholarly Kitchen, which is on these same lines. So I'll just finish my notes. So David believes that AI-driven peer review systems will outperform human reviewers in detecting plagiarism, copyright theft, and fraudulent submissions, although these systems will still require human oversight. And that's, again, a point that I agree with. And the development of fully automated peer review systems is seen as inevitable and following years of work by projects like Unisilo. I'm not familiar with the details of that.
Unsilo. They're called Unsilo.
Oh, sorry. Unsilo, yes. And Digital Sciences Papers Pro is noted to be a significant step towards the end-to-end article creation systems. Now, I have not explored Papers Pro in detail, but I'll let you speak about what your thoughts are on David's thoughts on this article.
Well, I'm not going to. I don't want to say too much about the article. The article speaks for itself. David is an optimist when it comes to electronic publishing. He is a pioneer and a thought leader when it comes to electronic publishing. He's highly respected. He won the recent Lifetime Achievement Award by the Association of Learned and Professional Society Publishers in Manchester. He is a very well respected. He's had companies that specialize in providing consultancy and support in electronic publishing, and has been. It really is I think if David says something, we all need to listen. And this article is another reflection of that. You know, he kind of highlights the fact that there is a certain amount of concern and I won't say pessimism, but there's a certain negativity about the use of AI, and he puts it into context. You know, change is happening. We have to embrace that change, and we have to make sure that change is within our grasp and in our control.
Yes, and I think that's a nice term. I've always thought of myself as an AI forward person. I think I should call myself an AI optimist. So moving on.
He's a technology optimist, but he's looking here specifically about AI, and he's definitely an AI optimist in this article.
All right. So moving on to the next story, again from peer review. It is an article from Nature Index titled "New Peer Review Trial Lets Grant Applicants Evaluate Each Other's Proposals." So the traditional peer review has some challenges. So it is very difficult to find qualified reviewers. That's a base premise for this article. And so the background is that the Volkswagen Foundation Open Up program offers grants up to I think 400,000 pounds and euros trial, and this trial distributed peer review for grant proposals. So applicants for the grants were required to review 4 to 5 other proposals, and the survey results indicated that 85% of the participants supported the distributed peer review process, and 77% trusted that suitable reviewers would assess their work, and 70% of the participants believe that the process could identify more adventurous research compared to conventional review. So this is an interesting sort of a step. Tony, your thoughts on this?
Oh, I think this is, as you say, it's an interesting step. It's one of 2 articles we're talking today about collaborative peer review, and I think it's so important that different models are being considered.
Yes, and this is in the field of grant proposals as well, which is something that we generally do not talk about. We talk about academic peer review, but the next one.
Well, no. So before we carry on, it's a big part of what the reviewer does. You think they'll get hundreds of review requests sent to them every year, but not all of them will be relating to a journal article. It could be a book. It could be a grant proposal. You know, they could be part of an internal review network. This is just one of a number of places where peer review plays a part.
Yes, and as you said, the next story is also an alternative peer review sort of a system.
Yeah.
This is again an article published in Nature Index. It's titled "Peer Review by Committee: New Journal Rethinks Old Model." So we are talking about a journal called Stacks, which introduced a community-based peer review process where groups of reviewers collaborate instead of working in isolation. So this is model. I mean, this was relatively new for me in the sense I did not know this. It is modeled after historical peer review practices. We will touch on historical peer review practice at the end of this episode, and this is an example is the Royal Society committee-based review process. So in this system, reviewers can discuss each other's feedback in a double-blind collaborative manner, ensuring fairness and transparency. All peer review reports, underlying data and code are publicly available, and each published article receives a credibility score based on the percentage of reviewers that approved it. So and then they can be the reviewers can choose to be collaborators for the article, which is another sort of a very nice step. Now, if Stacks also offers a cost-effective publishing model. Stacks it offers an annual membership of dollars US dollars $199, allowing research to publish unlimited open access articles on when you pay for it. So I guess it partially solves the APC challenge. And yet, despite all of this, it is still regarded, researchers are skeptical about submitting because it is, it does not have an impact factor. It's not a traditional journal. So from that point of view, it still struggles. So it was an interesting article. So Tony, what do you think? Stacks is the way to go forward?
I think any collaborative model is worth considering. I suppose I have a concern about the price, the $199 price, because that's for I assume that's for an individual researcher. Yeah. And what we find today is that individual researchers look to their institutions to buy licenses. So I'd be interested to see how that would compare if, let's say, a university or a research organization bought a license on behalf of its entire research group.
Interesting. Let's see how peer review evolves. I mean, academic publishing has to evolve in the wake of all the changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So the last article, which is a sort of a very nice summary about all the things that we've been talking about peer review. This is probably the most peer review episode we've been having such episodes for the last two as well. So this is a essay published in CSE Science Editor, I think, blog, and it is titled "The Indispensable Role of Human Attention, Observation, Editorial, and Peer Review." So it's I'll just sum up quick points. So AI operates within the boundary of existing data, while human cognition and human capacity can transcend these limits, and that's the reason why humans are vital for driving innovation. And as AI takes over mechanical tasks, human reviewers and editors must focus on cultivating critical thinking, skepticism, and creativity, qualities that set apart humans from AI, for example. And AI should be seen as a precursor to the next stage of human evolution, which is a sort of a leap, I would say, freeing up humans to focus on creative and insightful tasks. So these are my notes from the blog. Tony, your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I think what this writer does is kind of highlight where we are today. Peer review cannot work without AI supporting the human reviewer. I think he makes an interesting comment, or she makes an interesting comment. So I can't remember the name of the writer, where it's about it's AI, it's human led, but it's AI assisted, and I think that's where we are today. Yeah. It's not about replacing the human work; it's about supporting it, making it easier, making it more robust.
Mm-hmm. And now we have been talking about AI. We have a couple of stories, or 3 stories on AI. The first one is from Inside Higher Education. This is one of the last articles that I think I'll get access with free subscription. So this is titled "My Publisher Fed My Book to AI." Actually, so this the author of the piece, Stephen Jackson, is talking about Informa, the company that owns academic publishing heavyweights Routledge and Taylor and Francis recently, who have recently inked a deal to share their corpuses with research with Microsoft to train their AI system. So the author argues that their book was included in this corpus, and they argue that the probabilistic AI systems are inherently truth agnostic and do not care about accuracy and peer review training data or otherwise, he writes. And he gives a wonderful analogy. I think he says that this is similar to placing a steak dinner into a trash heap. And so this is what his thoughts are on publishers being lending their data or peer reviewed papers into training AI. So your thoughts, Tony?
I can't say I agree with this writer, but then again, I'm not an author in this sense myself.
Yeah.
I understand we're kind of in we're still defining, how intellectual property can be protected in these sorts of arrangements, and I think there will be a lot more clarity about this moving forward. But the thing that strikes me is that, yes, although I understand the author's concerns, the author should also know that the publisher is working in their best interest as well and protecting their content. So there will be measures in place. I just think this author needs to have a conversation, if he hasn't already had done so, with the publisher.
Yes, I mean, I think it's far towards not, I think, a balanced approach. I think what as a writer or as an author, maybe they will have different viewpoints, but the whole the phrase caught me, the staked in a trash heap. But I think that is, I would say I disagree, as you said, you are disagreeing with the author broadly, and that's what I would also say. I mean, eventually we need good quality data to be training these systems, and it'll eventually improve.
And it's not. I'm not saying I disagree with the author. I just think we're still in that ground where how these rights are being protected and how they're being expressed and communicated to authors is still being defined.
Right. And another story. This is from Nature. It's a comment. It's an article. So the headline caught my attention in the Nature briefing newsletter. Can AI have common sense? Finding out will be key to achieving machine intelligence. So again, I have a few points. So the first, the progress in machine common sense, which is a new term for me, requires deeper collaborations between AI and disciplines like psychology, which is a main key point of this, as well as better benchmarks to measure AI's reasoning capabilities. So AI LLMs are very good at memorizing, but they are not good at human-like cognition. And if suppose if you test these AIs or LLMs with MCQs, multiple choice questions, you're not going to get results. So the future direction would be to asking AIs or LLMs the explanation as to why it said what it said or what it said, giving for detailed explanations. The recommendations are that collaborations with field like cognitive science and philosophy is crucial. Better benchmark tests reflecting diverse reasoning skills are needed, and focusing on developing embodied AI systems that can interact with real world environments. I think it's again machine common sense is the main thing that I learned from this, and we need alternative techniques. So what are your thoughts, Tony, on this?
Nothing. I think you've said it all, really, KK. Yeah. It's interesting that we're seeing articles like this coming out, and in 5 years, 10 years time, I think this will be almost like a historical artifact, that there will be better reasoning, there will be better evaluation done by these AIs.
Yes, let's hope for a world with machine common sense that's better than what it is right now. And talking about better AI systems, scientists have finally reacted to O1. I think we've talked about the OpenAI's O1 model. So it was released in a preview form. It demonstrates a significant leap in performance, particularly in the field of physics, coding, and complex scientific reasoning. I'll share my opinion about it. So O1 is the first language model to outperform PhD level scholars on the graduate level Google Proof Q&A benchmark GPQA Diamond set, scoring 78% with 93% in physics, and it also excelled in International Mathematics Olympiad qualifying exams, solving 83% of the problems. Now, what it does, O1 does, uses a chain of thought logic, which involves taking itself through a series of reasoning steps, correcting errors as it goes. Also, even though O1 excels in complex tasks, it hallucinates occasionally, with anecdotal reports suggesting that higher hallucination rates than earlier models, which is what we talked about last time as well. So I personally have used O1, and I honestly feel that it's slower. It's not remarkably better than the standard ChatGPT 4 that we use. So what are your thoughts? Have you used any of these?
No, I haven't. I bow to your better wisdom on this, KK. But the one thing I would say is that it kind of reinforces what we've already talked about. It's human first, AI assisted. It kind of, the fact that the O1 tool was able to create code, which this author was able to then use to measure black holes and that timing was measured in hours rather than in months. That allows the researcher to do so much more and to get on and advance their research so much more quickly. I think that was my main takeaway from this article.
Yeah, and the good news is that testing is still going on, especially for literature review and everything, which is something that ChatGPT is very bad at right now, as it is. So maybe O1 will improve the overall performance in more sophisticated fields within the
Yeah.
academic research. So that's
In
a big.
fact, and David Warlock in the earlier paper we talked about said that this is absolutely one of the areas where AI should excel at in terms of supporting authors with finding flaws in the papers and the technical flaws, helping to identify literature that can support or counter the research.
All right, so that brings us to the quick hits. We'll hopefully cover these in a couple of minutes. So the first story is very interesting, related to peer review. Again, it is an article from, again, Nature, the early days of peer review, 5 insights from historical reports. So I'm just going to, this is a wonderful article if somebody is interested in the history of academic publishing. So the UK Royal Society, which has been practicing peer review for nearly 200 years, recently released more than 1,600 historic reports from 1949. So after the World War to 1954. These documents reveal how peer review has evolved from an informal process to its modern standardized form. And the key insights include the brevity of early reviews, the frequent bias presented in evaluations, and the importance of peer review in both assessing the quality of the scientific work as well as managing the rising costs of publishing. So the last point, it is basically to take away all the, let's say, the poor quality research from being needed to be published. So that's an interesting point. But I was also very interested in knowing how things went. So there are handwritten peer review reports like this. Tony, what are your thoughts? And bias has always been a problem with peer review, and we just talked about it.
Absolutely. We're talking about it as if it's only happened today. Yeah. The bias and poor peer review has been going on as long as there's been peer review. Again, what I thought was interesting from this paper, again, talking about one of the earlier papers about collaborative peer review. Yeah. The Royal Society has been doing collaborative peer review for over 100 years. I mean, they used to put committees. I think the article we talked about earlier on talked about how committees were formed by the Royal Society in order to decide whether a manuscript should be presented for publication or not. Mm-hmm. So, it's kind of what the French say is plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. The more things change, the more they stay the same. And this is another example I think of that.
Well, history repeats itself, I think. And anyway. So the last quick hit would be for, we cannot finish our PubShorts without talking about the latest Nobel Prize. It is from the field, it was given to the field economics. So these are the people who won. I'm not going to even attempt to pronouncing all their names. But anyway, so this is interesting from the point of view is that these 3 economists are awarded Nobel for their work on income inequality, which is important from my point of view. And they looked specifically at the history of European colonialism and the contrast in the fortunes of countries such as the United States or Australia versus countries in sub-Saharan Africa. So the result is that paradoxically, the parts of the colonized world that were relatively the most prosperous around 500 years ago are now the places where they're relatively poor. So if the pre-colonization state was very high in terms of economic sustenance, I think right now that things are worse. So it is interesting, and I just wanted to know your thoughts on this, Tony. So.
No, nothing particularly about the award themselves, and obviously is an extremely important award to be appointed. So congratulations. I thought there was an interesting comment one of the authors made, how people shouldn't expect to make money from AI. And a fortune should not be made from AI. I wonder if that's true. I think the door's open on that.
Yes, I disagree with this. And anyway, this brings us to the end of PubShorts episode 8, another day in peer review. Tony, any plans for the next week? I believe you are on vacation.
I'm on vacation next week. Yes, so we got we'll have one more PubShorts recording this week, and then we're taking a short break until early November. And to say, anyone watching this this recording, if you have any ideas or suggestions for topics, please feel free to contact either KK or me, and we'll be happy to consider your suggestions for future recordings.
Yeah, so PubShorts is currently, it's an episodic series weekly, and we are live streaming on LinkedIn and YouTube, and all the show links, whatever stories that we talked about, will be available in the show descriptions. And if suppose you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on LinkedIn. I think Tony has already shared his email address, but you can also search for PubShorts or Trinka or Enago in any of the social media platforms. If you find us there, please let us know what your thoughts are, what you want us to cover. And if you like and subscribe to our channel, then this content will reach other viewers who might be interested in it. So we will always appreciate your support. Yeah. So Tony, any parting messages for for our audience?
Nothing apart from I look forward to our next meeting.
All right. So that brings us to the end of PubShorts. On behalf of everybody who supports us in bringing this show, this is Dr. KK signing off for PubShorts. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.